Alright, a title like this gives me no time and people will be thinking who, what, where, when, why, and how. So I'm going to have to hit these points as quick as possible. What? Legendary and mythical Pokemon are overrated. Who? All of these big boys. Where? In-game, in lore, and from what I'm going to be explaining sometimes in the competitive aspect. It depends. When? Well, kind of always. Now, why and how are going to be elaborated on. Before I begin, I'm going to group in mythical Pokemon with legendary Pokemon so I don't have to define both every time and just going to refer to both as legendary Pokemon. I mean, not that many people know the difference between them anyways. Now, ever since we got news of these Pokemon that are nowhere around the level and rarity of the Pokemon we encounter, everyone had lost their minds, me included. Going back to Pokemon Red and Blue, this is where we were given information of this Pokemon that had been birthed from the ancestor of all Pokemon, which was crazy. Then we had encountered that Pokemon, which was Mewtwo. It was a monumental moment for Pokemon which had influenced the future games to come, where legendary Pokemon are now a staple to making a Pokemon game. The influence shows because Kanto so far has been the only region that has had Pokemon that aren't legendary as the box cover. Which is great, you need the highlight of the game. The thing with that now is that having these Pokemon gives many people this false narrative and perspective on legendary Pokemon. To get a little bit Team Rocket-esque, legendary Pokemon were presented with their lore, rarity, and difficulty of catching them. I don't want to say that legendary Pokemon are a trophy because that goes against one of the biggest points in Pokemon, but in terms of the game itself, it's been treated like that. It's either that or they're captured and put away because there's many times where we can get a legendary Pokemon that's higher level than any of the trainers we have to battle in that part of the game. Or there were also those times where you had a friend that brings these legendary Pokemon with them into battle, making it unbalanced in terms of statistical comparisons. Think about it like this. Have you ever had a legendary Pokemon encounter and just tried to beat it? Not capture them on like what we've been doing always, but just beat them on. Many people will be confused as to why you would beat it because they're meant to be caught, but 2, they're extremely easy to beat. With the levels my Pokemon were in any of the encounters, legendary Pokemon have never been on par. Even when looking at it in the most lenient way possible, you're telling me that a team of level 30 to 45 Pokemon couldn't beat a level 47 Giratina? It's possible that maybe it's an odd occurrence, but it really isn't. Imagine a lot of these Pokemon have been living for thousands of years before battling you, but once you get into a battle with them, they're level 70? It seems like a crazy level, but if a Pokemon was to be caught and trained by a trainer, it can reach level 100 with enough battling. When it comes to legendary Pokemon, they have never reached that level by themselves. Even the god of all Pokemon had capped at level 80. And you're telling me that he's the end all be all against my team? This translates universally across Pokemon because legendary Pokemon have never been untouchable. Even in competitive, it's half true. See, there's around 81 legendary Pokemon, give or take Zeraora, because unreleased. 67% of that 81 are Pokemon that are tiered under Ubers, meaning that they're around regular Mons. Oh wait, there's forms. Yeah, even then, around 60% are bad. Or well, not as strong as Ubers. Summarizing all of that, legendaries aren't that ridiculous, especially since a trained Pokemon can be stronger than the strongest Pokemon in terms of stats, which can translate into scaling. What I've shown you all here, including the examples, all apply into the Pokemon world itself. Well, what does that mean? See, I had this video on how strong are Pokemon to where I had talked about some of what I mentioned here, but the biggest thing I made a highlight on are stats, scaling, and dex entries. Since Pokemon is a franchise to where the most busted beings are still susceptible to being beaten, the stats and dex entry of a Pokemon should be able to tell you how strong they are. Though I also believe that what keeps certain Pokemon from being compared to others is the dex entries. Sometimes it's the power of the Pokemon that lets it do what it doesn't, and while it's feats in terms of general feats, it doesn't add on to the strength for when it's against other Pokemon. For example, Kartana's dex entry says it takes out buildings with one strike and it has a base attack of 181. Meanwhile, Machamp's dex entry in yellow had stated that it's a Pokemon that can move mountains just with one arm. So even with stats that are stronger than Primal Groudon and Regigigas, one Pokemon whose weather can affect the world like Primal Kyogre and the other one who had moved continents, its feats cap it around at building or town level. That would be ridiculous. The best way to approach how strong you think a Pokemon is that you first go about its stats. Once you have its stats, you can go do some scaling to other Pokemon and see where the feats lay. It's as simple as that. Once done and compared feats, it makes a lot of sense on why some of these legendaries are on par with other Pokemon, but that's just on the feats alone. Stats beat those and provide the best numbers possible you can get with this. Final thoughts. Now, do any of you remember any of those jokes that someone made on something like this? Like, why is a 10-year-old able to capture God? Well, in Pokemon, the kid can not only capture God, but whoop him too, because God has been severely nerfed in comparison to his original self, and for some reason, he's level 80. No, seriously, Pokemon like Arceus, Regigigas, and other Pokemon with backgrounds like that have extremely huge backgrounds to what they are known at now is a lower level. Arceus with all the places, that's just shilling. Who knows? Maybe we'll get Ultimate Arceus and the original Regigigas and the Gen 4 remix, but who knows when that's going to be. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm probably going to be bringing in more Pokemon stuff because I love Pokemon, and I might do a whole Pokemon power levels thing on how exactly where the stats would lay and if this goes over this number and yada yada yada. Whatever, you'll see. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe, and leave a comment for more. If you like this, you just leave a comment and tell me, hey, you had more Pokemon stuff, and I'll be sure to look that over. I'm probably going to do it. And hopefully, I'll see you guys all in the next one. So, until then, peace out, and Godspeed.